Flappy Bird, the rage game we're all obsessed over in early 2014, which became one of the most recreated games of all time. I'm participating in the 20 Game Challenge, which is about recreating 20 existing games. In my first video, I remade Pong, and now it's time to show you my take on Flappy Bird. I start off really simple, a scene with some text saying tap to flap. And when you do, the game starts, which just hides the text for now. I made 4 animation frames for the bird, 2 for flying and 2 for crashing. In a new scene, I assemble the bird with all the components. Initially, the bird hovers and falls as soon as the game starts. When the player taps the screen, I apply a force upwards and play the flap animation. And that's pretty much it for step 2. No collisions or anything just yet. For the pipes, I made one scene with a single pipe and one for a pair of pipes. In the main scene, I added a pipe handler to be responsible for spawning pipe pairs. The ground was just a grass tile to be repeated, so I used a parallax background node and a parallax layer to create the effect. And now with all collisions in place, I stopped all the movement whenever the player collided with a pipe or the ground. To add a losing condition, I just added a game over state that is triggered whenever the bird hits the ground. Then a restart button would appear and the player reloads the level by clicking on it. At this point, I also added in the 2 collision animations for the bird. Last thing for the game loop was to add points. So I added a point counter that appears after clicking start. A point is rewarded for passing pipes, and the total points are displayed on the end screen together with the restart button. With the core game loop in place, it was time for some polish. For sound effects, I used an online tool called JSFXR. I made 2 sounds when colliding, one with the pipes and one with the ground. I also made a sound for earning points. For the flaps, I found a whoosh sound on Pixabay. For the background, I made 4 parallax layers: the sky, clouds, distant greenery, and closer trees. After this, I added best score. It displays on the end screen with the most recent score and gets saved properly. I actually made sure your score gets saved even if you accidentally close down the window mid-game. Just a small detail I like. Instead of creating a dedicated settings menu, I instead made a main menu with some audio toggle buttons. While here, I included a stats button and a button to toggle the music, even though I didn't have any stats or music at the time. I knew I wanted to add that later, so I left them disabled for now. The end screen now had 2 buttons, one for restarting and one for going back to the menu. So far, I had only used default buttons, so it was time to improve on that. I made 2 sprites or states for each button, idle and pressed. The pressed button sprite was reused for disable buttons. A clicking sound was added to the buttons, and I also found some music I liked from Pixabay. For replayability, I really want to add the medals to the game, so I recreated the 4 medals but with my bird's face on it. I'm not sure how it was in the original, but I decided to reward you with a bronze medal for 10 points, silver for 25, gold for 50, and platinum for 100. Lastly, I wanted some stats. Some were more useful, like the amount of medals earned and dates, and some were just for fun, like the number of times you flapped, or the number of times you died without passing a single pipe. With that, I only did some final tweaks, added an icon and a splash screen before exporting. The game is playable on itch, and the source code can be found on GitHub. Both are linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.